You have 72 hours before someone notices you're gone. Maybe less. The question isn't whether you can leave, it's whether you can leave without creating a pattern that follows you. Most people who try to disappear fail in the first 6 hours, not because they lack courage, because they misunderstand what visibility actually means. Here's what nobody tells you. Disappearing isn't about distance. It's about severing behavioral signatures. Your neighborhood isn't watching you, but it's recording you. Every routine you've built over months or years has created a data shadow. The time you leave for work, the car that's always in your driveway, the lights that turn on at 8 p.m., the trash you put out every Tuesday. Your neighbors don't consciously track this, but their pattern recognition does. And the moment that pattern breaks, the questions start. This is where people die, not physically, but operationally. They think disappearing means packing a bag and driving away at midnight. They think it's cinematic, one dramatic exit. What they don't realize is that sudden absence creates exactly the kind of attention you're trying to avoid. A missing car triggers curiosity. A dark house for 3 nights triggers concern. Concern triggers calls. Calls trigger checks. Checks trigger searches. So forget what you've been taught by movies. You don't disappear by vanishing. You disappear by fading, and fading requires setup. The first law is this: absence must be expected before it occurs. If you're gone without warning, you're not invisible. You're a problem someone will try to solve. But if your absence has a reason, a timeline, a story that makes sense, then you're not missing, you're just not here right now. And that distinction is everything. You need to build a reason to be gone that doesn't require proof. Work travel works if you've mentioned work trips before. Family emergency works if you've talked about sick relatives. Even a vague taking some time to disconnect works if you've ever complained about stress. The content doesn't matter. The consistency does. Whatever story you build, it has to fit the version of you people think they know. Start seeding this 2 weeks out, minimum. Mention it casually, don't oversell. One comment to a neighbor while taking out trash. One offhand remark to the guy at the corner store. You're not making announcements, you're planting ambient information. The kind that doesn't feel significant until it's needed to explain something. Here's the part that matters. You can't just stop showing up, you have to taper your visibility. If you're normally home every evening, start being gone 2 nights a week. If your car is always parked in the same spot, start parking it elsewhere occasionally. If you always wave to the same neighbor, stop waving as much, slowly. Gradually, make your presence less predictable so your absence doesn't register as a break. It registers as continuation of a trend. Most people skip this step. They think disappearing starts the day they leave. Wrong. Disappearing starts the moment you decide to disappear. Every day between decision and departure is either working for you or against you. If you do nothing, your patterns harden. If you disrupt those patterns incrementally, you create ambiguity. And ambiguity is cover. Now let's talk about the physical space. Your home is a signal generator. Lights, sounds, movement, cars, mail, trash. Every one of these outputs tells people you're there or you're not. When you leave, most of these will stop. That's the problem. A house that goes dark and silent screams absence. You need to make it lie. Timers are your first tool, not just for lights. For everything that creates the illusion of occupancy. Lights on a random cycle. A radio on low volume in the living room. Even a fan running in a back room. The goal isn't to simulate your exact routine. It's to make the house feel occupied enough that no one looks closer. You're not trying to fool someone standing at your window. You're trying to fool someone glancing over while walking their dog. But here's where most people fail. They set everything to turn on and off at the same time every day. That's not random. That's mechanical. And mechanical patterns get noticed. Vary the times. Vary the rooms. Make it inconsistent enough to feel human. Because humans are inconsistent. Your car is the next problem. If it's gone, people notice. If it stays, people assume you're home. Neither is ideal. Best option is to move it before you leave, but not in an obvious way. Park it at a nearby transit station, a grocery store lot. Somewhere it can sit for a few days without being flagged. If that's not possible, have someone move it periodically. Not every day, just enough to make it look like it's being used. Mail and packages are the silent alarm. A mailbox that overflows is a billboard that says nobody's home. Stop your mail through the postal service or have someone collect it. If you can't do either, at least make sure nothing visible piles up outside your door. One package sitting for 4 days is enough to prompt a welfare check. Here's what you do next. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Tell me what part of your routine would expose you first if you tried to leave tomorrow. Because most of you don't know. And that's the problem. You're not leaving your neighborhood. You're leaving your identity's anchor point. The place where your patterns are most concentrated. The place where your absence has the highest chance of becoming someone else's concern. Which means the single biggest mistake you can make is treating this like a departure. It's not. It's a controlled dissolution. Most people think the hard part is the logistics. Where to go? What to take? How to move without being seen? Those are problems, but they're not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is social mass. The accumulated weight of relationships, expectations, routines, and micro-obligations that tie you to a location. Every person who expects something from you is a thread. Every routine someone else has noticed is a thread. Pull away too fast and the threads snap. Snapping creates noise. Noise creates attention. Attention creates pursuit, so you don't pull away. You let the thread slacken, slowly enough that no one notices the tension dropping. This is where people die. They think they can just stop responding to texts. Stop showing up to plans. Stop being available. They think silence is enough. It's not. Silence is a void, and humans fill voids with assumptions, usually bad ones. You didn't answer because you're mad, or sick, or in trouble. Those assumptions generate action. Calls, visits. Knock on your door at 9 p.m. because someone wanted to make sure you're okay. You need to manage the fade. And managing the fade means giving people a reason not to worry that doesn't require your ongoing participation. Here's how. 2 weeks before you leave, start mentioning that you're going to be harder to reach. Don't say why in detail. Just plant the idea. I'm going off grid for a while. Works. Taking a break from my phone works. Dealing with some family stuff and need space works. The key is vagueness. Specific lies require specific maintenance. Vague truths require nothing. At the same time, start lowering your responsiveness. Take longer to reply to messages. Let calls go to voicemail more often. Cancel plans with increasing frequency. You're not ghosting people. You're training them to expect less from you. When you finally stop responding entirely, it won't feel like a break. It'll feel like the logical endpoint of a trend they've already adjusted to. But there's a hierarchy to this. Not everyone in your social network has the same level of concern or persistence. Some people will accept your absence immediately. Others will push. You need to know which is which before you leave. The ones who will push are the ones you need to preemptively satisfy. This is the calculus. Anyone who has called you when you didn't answer within 2 hours. Anyone who has shown up at your door unannounced. Anyone who has explicitly said they worry about you. These are the people who will not let your absence sit quietly. They will investigate. So you give them closure before they need it. A long message works, not a goodbye. A preemptive explanation. Hey, I know I've been distant lately. I'm okay, but I need to step away from everything for a bit. No idea how long. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Please don't worry, and please don't try to track me down. I just need space. Send it the night before you leave, not the day you leave. The night before, so it has time to land before your absence becomes noticeable. Will some people ignore that and try to reach you anyway? Yes. Let them. Don't respond. Responding resets the clock. Every time you reply, you're telling them you're still accessible. And accessible means trackable. The whole point of the message is to buy you silence. Use it. Now let's talk about the physical act of leaving. Most people overthink this. They plan elaborate exit strategies. Leave at 3 a.m. Wear a disguise. Take back roads. All of that is theater. It's not wrong, but it's solving the wrong problem. The problem isn't being seen leaving. The problem is being seen leaving in a way that looks like fleeing. If you leave at 3 a.m. with bags piled in your car, you look like you're running. If you leave at 10 a.m. on a weekday looking like you're going to work, you look normal. Normal doesn't get remembered. Panic gets remembered. So the rule is simple. Leave the same way you'd leave if you were going somewhere you'd be coming back from. Pack light. Whatever you take needs to fit in a normal amount of luggage. 1 suitcase. 1 bag. If you're loading a truck, you're doing it wrong. Anything that doesn't fit that profile either gets left behind or shipped ahead to wherever you're going. And yes, that means you're leaving things behind. This is not a relocation, it's an extraction. Extraction means you take what you need to survive the next phase, not what you want to keep from the last one. Your exit route matters less than you think. Unless you live somewhere with 1 road in and 1 road out, the route is irrelevant. What matters is timing. You want to leave during a window when your absence won't be immediately noticed, but also when movement is normal. Mid-morning on a weekday. Early afternoon. Times when people are at work and not paying attention to who's coming and going. Do not leave on a Friday evening. Do not leave on a Sunday night. Those are high visibility windows. Everyone's home. Everyone's noticing cars. Everyone's in their yard or looking out windows. You want to move when the neighborhood is empty or distracted. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The first 72 hours after you leave are the highest risk window. That's when someone might notice you're gone and decide to check. A neighbor knocking on your door, a friend stopping by, a delivery that requires a signature. If any of those things happen and you're not there and your house doesn't look occupied, the questions start. Which is why everything we talked about in the first section matters. The timers, the mail, the car, the ambient signals that say, someone's still here. Those aren't just for show. They're your perimeter defense. They're buying you time and distance while people's assumptions about your presence slowly decay. But assumptions decay at different rates for different people. Your closest neighbors will notice your absence faster than the guy 3 houses down. Your best friend will notice faster than an acquaintance. You need to map that decay curve before you leave. And you need to make sure that by the time anyone notices, you're far enough gone that their concern can't reach you. This is the part that matters. Leaving isn't the hard part. Staying gone is. You've left. Your house is lying for you. Your social perimeter is managed. You have distance. Now the clock starts on a different problem. Not whether people notice you're gone, but whether they care enough to look for you. And if they look, whether they find anything. This is where most people fail permanently. They think distance equals safety. It doesn't. You can be 1,000 miles away and still be tied to your old location by a dozen invisible threads. Financial threads, digital threads, legal threads, administrative threads. Every one of those is a retrieval mechanism. And if you haven't severed them, someone pulling on one end will eventually pull you back into view. Here's what nobody tells you. The modern infrastructure of identity isn't designed to let you disappear. It's designed to keep you locatable. Not because anyone's actively hunting you, but because every system you interact with needs to know where you are to function. Banks need an address. Employers need contact info. Utilities need billing locations. Even your phone needs a network. All of that is tracking infrastructure. And the moment you stop feeding it, it starts generating alerts. A missed payment is an alert. An expired lease is an alert. A phone going dark is an alert. None of these are loud. None of these trigger immediate action, but they accumulate. And accumulation creates a pattern. A pattern creates a trail. A trail creates a retrieval vector. So the question isn't just, did I leave cleanly? It's, did I leave zero residue? And most people leave gallons of it. Let's start with money. Your bank accounts are the most dangerous thing you still own. Not because banks are hunting you, but because banks are required to know where you are. If your address on file becomes invalid, they'll start sending mail. If that mail bounces, they'll flag the account. If the account gets flagged, it goes into review. Review means human eyes. Human eyes mean questions. Questions mean someone trying to locate you to resolve the discrepancy. You can't just close your accounts the day you leave. That's a signal. Sudden liquidation followed by disappearance is a pattern investigators recognize. It says flight. It says intent. It says something happened. And that something becomes a reason to look harder. Better approach is to drain the account slowly over months. Small withdrawals, nothing that triggers reporting thresholds. Nothing that looks panicked. Move cash into a form that isn't tracked. Prepaid cards, money orders. Physical currency. Yes, it's cumbersome. Yes, it's risky to carry, but it's invisible. And invisibility is worth the inconvenience. If you can't drain everything, at least update your address to something that isn't your real location. A mail forwarding service, a P.O. box in another city. Anything that creates separation between where you are and where institutions think you are. The goal is to make your paper trail point somewhere you aren't. Credit cards are worse than bank accounts. Every transaction is a location stamp. Every swipe is a data point. If you use a card after you leave, you're telling anyone with access to that data exactly where you were and when. Law enforcement can get that data. Private investigators can get that data. Even persistent individuals with the right social engineering can get fragments of that data, so you stop using them entirely. The day you leave is the last day you swipe a card that's tied to your real name. After that, everything is cash or anonymous payment methods, no exceptions. One mistake, One moment of convenience, one "it's just this once," is enough to burn your entire operational security. Your phone is the next problem. And it's a bigger problem than most people understand. Your phone isn't just a communication device. It's a tracking device that occasionally makes calls. Every time it's on, it's pinging towers. Every ping is a location marker. Every app you use is harvesting data. Even if you're not making calls, even if you're not using data, the phone itself is broadcasting your location to the network. You can't take it with you. Or more accurately, you can't take it with you and expect to stay hidden. If you must keep a phone, it needs to be a new one. Bought with cash, activated with a prepaid plan that doesn't require real ID. No connection to your old number, no contacts imported. No apps that know who you were. But even that's not enough. Because phones are social devices, and social devices require social interaction. If you call people you used to know, you've linked your old identity to your new location. If you log into accounts you used to use, you've done the same. The phone can be anonymous, but if you're not, the phone inherits your visibility. Most people can't do this. They think they can. They plan to, but 3 days in, they're lonely and they text someone they trust. That person responds. Now there's a connection. That connection is a thread. Pull it hard enough and it leads back to you. This is the part where people die, not because they're found, but because they're half gone, stuck in a liminal state where they've left but they haven't fully severed. They're trying to hold on to pieces of their old life while building a new one. That doesn't work. You can't disappear while remaining accessible. Those are incompatible states. So you make a choice. Either you're gone or you're not. If you're gone, that means everyone you knew gets zero access, zero updates, zero reassurance. It means accepting that people will worry, that some will assume the worst, that others will be angry, that some might even report you missing. And you let them. Because the alternative is staying visible. And staying visible means being findable. Let's talk about digital footprint. Social media is obvious. You delete it or you abandon it. No new posts. No logins, no activity. If you leave it active but frozen, it becomes a timestamp. Last seen 3 months ago is data. Data creates questions. Questions create investigation. Email is less obvious but more dangerous. Your email is tied to everything. Every account you've ever made, every service you've ever used. Password resets, notifications, alerts. If someone gets access to your email, they get access to your entire digital infrastructure. And getting access to email is easier than most people think. Security questions are public information. Password hints are guessable. Social engineering is effective. So you don't just stop checking it, you burn it. Delete the account entirely, or at minimum, change every password and recovery option to information that doesn't connect to you. Make it a dead end, because if it's not a dead end, it's a door someone can walk through. Here's what you need to understand. Every piece of your old identity that remains functional is a beacon. Every account, every subscription, every automated payment, every piece of mail, every service that expects you to be reachable. All of it is infrastructure that assumes your location. And infrastructure that assumes your location will eventually try to confirm your location. You can't leave half of it running and expect to stay hidden. Either you dismantle it entirely or you accept that it's going to give you away. There's no middle ground. This is where the question becomes existential. How much of your old life are you willing to burn to stay gone? Because that's what this is. Not relocation. Not a fresh start. Controlled demolition. You're not moving to a new city. You're erasing the version of you that lived in the old one. Most people aren't ready for that. They think they are. They imagine it. They plan for it. But when it's real, when it's happening, when they're staring at the delete button on an email account they've had for 15 years, they hesitate. And hesitation is failure. You don't get to keep the pieces you like. You don't get to stay in touch with the people you trust. You don't get to maintain access to the resources you built. All of that is weight. And weight is drag. And drag is what gets you caught. So you cut it all loose. Every thread, every tie, every connection. Not because you want to, but because anything less isn't disappearing. It's hiding, and hiding ends when someone looks hard enough. You're gone. You've severed financial threads, digital infrastructure, social expectations. You've put distance between you and the location where your identity had the most mass. Now the problem shifts. You're not managing an exit anymore. You're managing an absence. And absence is harder to maintain than most people expect. Because here's the reality. The world is built to make you reappear, not through active pursuit, through passive requirements. You need a place to sleep. That place costs money. Money requires income. Income requires work. Work requires identity. Identity requires documentation. Documentation requires a verifiable history. And history points backward, always. This is where people die. They think disappearing is about the first 72 hours. It's not. It's about the first 72 days. That's the window where your absence solidifies into either a sustainable state or a slow collapse back into visibility. If you resurface during that window, you've wasted everything. If you manage to stay under, the curve starts working for you. People stop looking. Assumptions harden. Your absence becomes normal. But getting through that window requires solving a problem most people don't anticipate. You can't just be nowhere. You have to be somewhere. And being somewhere means interacting with systems. Systems mean records. Records mean retrieval vectors. Unless you build a version of yourself that can interact with those systems without connecting back to who you were. Let's talk about lodging. Most people's first instinct is to rent an apartment or a room. That's a mistake. Rental agreements require ID. They require credit checks. They require references. All of that is verification infrastructure. And verification infrastructure is designed to confirm you are who you say you are. If you are who you say you are, you're not disappeared. You're relocated. Short-term options are better. Weekly motels that take cash. Sublets that don't require paperwork. Extended stay hotels in areas where no one asks questions. You're looking for places where transience is normal. Where management has seen enough people passing through that you're just another face. Where record keeping is minimal or non-existent. But even those aren't permanent. You can stay in a cash motel for a month, maybe 2. After that, you start getting noticed, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence has duration. Duration creates familiarity. Familiarity creates memory. Memory creates risk. So you move. Not far. Just enough to break continuity. A different motel across town. A different sublet in a different neighborhood. You're cycling through spaces fast enough that you never become a fixture. Never become someone people remember. You're always new. Always just passing through. Always about to leave. This is exhausting. It's supposed to be. Sustainable disappearance isn't comfortable. It's a constant low-level grind of logistical maintenance. If it were easy, more people would do it. The difficulty is what makes it work. Because the difficulty is what stops most people from trying in the first place. Employment is the next friction point. You need money. Money comes from work. But work comes from employment. And employment requires the one thing you can't provide anymore. A stable, verifiable identity. Most people think the answer is under-the-table work. Cash jobs, day labor. Gig work that doesn't ask questions, that works. For a while, but it's not scalable. Cash work pays less, it's inconsistent. It ties you to locations where that kind of work exists, and those locations are usually the kind of places where people notice strangers. Better option is remote work under a constructed identity, not a fake ID. That's illegal and fragile, a lightweight identity. A name that's real enough to pass casual checks, but disconnected from your history. You're not committing fraud. You're just being someone else. Someone with a generic name, a plausible background, and no history that ties back to your old life. You build this slowly. Start with a prepaid phone. Then an email address that matches the name. Then accounts on freelance platforms using that email. Then work history doing small jobs. Over weeks, that history accumulates. It's thin, but it's real. And real enough is enough. The work itself needs to be location independent. Writing, design, data entry, translation, support. Anything that can be done remotely and doesn't require video calls or verification beyond, can you do the task? You're not building a career. You're generating income without generating a profile. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The goal isn't to make a lot of money. The goal is to make enough money that you're not forced into situations where you have to compromise your invisibility to survive. Desperation creates mistakes. Mistakes create exposure. As long as you can cover basic needs, you're operationally secure. The moment you can't, you start making choices that erode everything you've built. Now let's talk about interaction. Because you're not a ghost. You're a person moving through physical space. And physical space is full of other people. People who see you, people who might remember you, people who might, under the right circumstances, become a problem. The rule is simple. Be boring. Boring doesn't get remembered. Boring doesn't create stories. Boring doesn't trigger the pattern recognition that makes someone think, I should remember this person. Don't dress unusually. Don't talk more than necessary. Don't have strong opinions in public. Don't get into arguments. Don't help people in memorable ways. Don't ask unusual questions. Don't be the guy everyone liked or the guy everyone hated. Be the guy who was there and then wasn't, and nobody can quite remember why they remember you at all. This is harder than it sounds. Humans are social. We want connection. We want to be seen. We want people to know we exist. And suppressing that constantly is corrosive. It wears you down. Makes you wonder why you left in the first place. Makes you think about going back. Don't. That's the trap. The psychological gravity of your old life pulling at you, telling you it wasn't that bad, telling you people will have forgotten by now, telling you it's safe to go back. It's not. Or maybe it is. But the moment you start thinking about going back, you're not managing your absence anymore. You're negotiating with it. And negotiation is how people get caught. Let's talk about surveillance. Not the kind where someone's actively looking for you. The ambient kind. Cameras everywhere. Facial recognition systems. License plate readers. Data aggregation tools. All of it running in the background. Collecting, sorting, storing. You can't avoid it entirely. Not without going off grid in a way that's unsustainable for most people. But you can minimize your exposure. Don't linger in areas with high camera density. Don't drive if you can walk. Don't use the same routes repeatedly. Don't create patterns that algorithmic analysis can lock onto. Most surveillance isn't looking for you specifically. It's looking for patterns that match threat models or compliance violations. As long as you're not doing anything that fits those models, you're noise. And noise is invisible. But the moment you become a pattern, you become data. And data becomes actionable. Here's what you do. Vary everything. Times you're out, places you go, routes you take, even the rhythm of your days. Humans are habitual. Algorithms know that. They expect consistency. Inconsistency breaks their models, breaks their ability to predict where you'll be and what you'll do. This doesn't mean be random. Random is suspicious. It means be variable within a normal range. Go to different grocery stores. Eat at different places. Walk different paths home. Not because someone's chasing you, but because if someone were, you want your data footprint to be too messy to form a clear picture. The psychological cost of this is real. Constant low-level vigilance, never relaxing completely. Always scanning for cameras, for faces that repeat, for situations that feel slightly wrong. It's paranoia, but it's functional paranoia. The kind that keeps you hidden. And that's the trade. Comfort versus invisibility. Connection versus security. The life you had versus the absence you're maintaining. Most people can't sustain that trade long term. They crack, they reach out, they slip, and slipping ends it. You're trying not to slip. You've been gone for 3 months. Maybe longer. The initial panic window has closed. People have stopped calling, stopped showing up, stopped checking. Your absence has moved from anomaly to fact. You're not missing anymore. You're just gone. That's progress, but it's also when the next problem starts. Duration changes the game. Short-term disappearance is about avoiding detection. Long-term disappearance is about avoiding erosion, and erosion happens in 2 directions: external and internal. External erosion is what happens when the systems you're hiding from start to close in on the gaps you created. Unpaid debts generate collections. Unfiled taxes generate notices. Abandoned leases generate legal actions. All of that creates paper trails. And paper trails create search vectors, not because anyone's actively hunting you, but because bureaucratic systems don't accept unresolved states. They escalate. A missed credit card payment becomes a late fee. A late fee becomes a collections notice. A collections notice becomes a lawsuit. A lawsuit becomes a judgment. A judgment becomes a lien. A lien becomes a matter of public record. Public records are searchable. Searchable means findable. You can't stop this entirely. Some erosion is inevitable, but you can slow it, manage it, keep it from accelerating into something that generates active pursuit. If you left debts behind, they're working against you. They're creating legal actions you can't respond to, which means default judgments, which means your name is now attached to unresolved financial obligations that will follow you indefinitely. Anyone looking for you now has a reason. Debt collectors are persistent. They're incentivized to find you, and they're good at it. The smarter play was to settle or discharge those debts before you left. But most people don't. They panic. They run. They leave the mess behind thinking distance will protect them. It won't. Not forever. Same with taxes. If you had income and didn't file, the IRS doesn't forget. They have decades to pursue you. And they will. Eventually, not immediately, but eventually. And when they do, they'll use every tool available to locate you. Bank records, employment records, property records, all of it. This is the calculus. Every unresolved obligation you left behind is a weight pulling you back toward visibility. And that weight doesn't decrease over time, it accumulates. Interest, penalties, legal escalations, all of it compounding until it reaches a threshold where someone decides it's worth the effort to find you. You can't undo what's already in motion, but you can make sure you're not creating new vectors, which means staying clean, no new debts, no new legal entanglements, no situations where your name ends up in a system that might be cross-referenced later. Internal erosion is harder. It's psychological. It's what happens when the version of yourself you're maintaining starts to conflict with the version of yourself you actually are. Here's what nobody tells you. Disappearing doesn't just erase your location. It erases context. The context that made you make sense to yourself, your job, your relationships, your routines. Your identity was built on those things. Without them, you're not a person in a different place. You're a collection of behaviors with no supporting structure, and that's destabilizing. At first, it feels like freedom, no obligations, no expectations, no one to answer to. But freedom without purpose is just drift, and drift is corrosive. You start asking questions you didn't ask before. Why did I leave? Was it worth it? What am I doing? Where is this going? Those questions don't have good answers. Because the reasons you left were situational. They made sense in context. But context is gone. Now you're just here. Wherever here is. And here doesn't care why you came. Most people don't prepare for this. They